We are at If My People Bible reading part 47, the book of Genesis. And we left you in chapter 26, verse 6, where Isaac was in Gerar. It was a famine at the time. And some of you might wonder, like some ministers and some Christian teaches that this area was the Garden of Eden and it's cursed and so forth. And no way of proving any of that's a great story, but some people base their Christian doctrine out of it, and I'm not sure why people take off in wild tangents. I know a lot of people like to be different than other people, and so they come up with this stuff and then they sell it to their congregations. But we don't. We're just presenting it that there's a famine in the land, and the only thing we would say is, if you don't hear and obey the Father, uh, some things could happen to you like a famine. Well, we do know this. If you do hear and obey the Father, you're blessed. And your land will be good, and your house will be good, and your children will be good, and everything will be good. But even so, Job was a righteous man, and he was tested, and look what the Father allowed to happen to him. The Father tested Job to the nth degree. That's why we started the book of Job, because not only is it the oldest book, but because it teaches stories that will repeat themselves again, like Abraham being tested, and he was tested. Now we have his grandson, his sons, and his sons after that. Now we have Isaac. Isaac's being tested. So we begin. Um, and in verse 7 it says, when the men of that place, which is not a good place, by the way, he was living in. His dad lived there a long time in the Philistine area. Not a good idea. And he said, and somebody asked about his wife. He said, you say this, he's my sister. She is my sister. Because he is afraid to say, she is my wife. He thought, the men of this place might kill me on account of Rebekah because she is beautiful. Does that sound familiar? The sins of the father carry on. And is that so? So the sins of the father carry on to the sons and so forth? Yeah. DNA is an incredible thing. You teach a Labrador, somebody did. You teach a Labrador to swim, and they have pups and they learn how to swim, and they have pups and they learn how to swim. Pretty soon, the pups are born, and you don't have to teach them anymore. They know how to swim. It's in their DNA. Now that's good stuff. That's good stuff. Um, a kangaroo, when a mother bears I don't know the name of it. It's about this big, crawls out of its mother's um, birthing, and it's down near the bottom of the kangaroo, and it crawls up through the fur of the mother, and the mother stands there. She doesn't move, because if she moves or goes through brush or runs off or anything, this thing's going to fall off, and she could never put it back together again. It has to be done on its own, and it will crawl up to the top of the mother's fold, then will go down the inside of the mother, down through the fold, and there's a teat down there, and that little thing clamps on to that mother's teat and stays there until it's ready to come out a pretty good size. Pretty good size. That's DNA. Yahweh put that into the DNA of a kangaroo. If Yahweh's going to spend that much time and energy on a bird or a flower or kangaroo, how much time do you think he spent on us putting our DNA together so that when we have a soul that also recognizes the Father, those two are married to each other. They become like Echad. And then when that person marries a spouse, male or female, male to a female, female to a male, we don't want to get that all confused. They are Echad. So here we have things that go wrong, things that are sinful. So does that repeat itself? If it repeats itself all over the world today, if birds know exactly where to fly from north to south, from the Arctic down to Australia, and winter there. And no one told them to do it or read a book in the library or checked out on Google, then the bad things that happen you can also be naturally passed on. It takes a while to get them cleaned out. So if things are good to you, you keep it inside of you and you pass it on to your living ones. And if things are bad, you have a bit inside of you, but you work it out through 3 or 4 generations. The word tells you later on that's how you get rid of stuff like that. Okay? Very important. Chapter 26 is like really important here. Isaac becomes very rich. People around him get nervous, just like today. Get real nervous around real rich people. And they want to get rid of him. They want to share it. They want to have a piece of it. And they want to get rid of him. Whatever. That's what they want, just like today. So he lived around Beersheba, just like his father did. And when Isaac were out digging wells to continue, they had to keep digging wells, and the wells becomes a problem. It becomes a problem because you have to move around. You can't dig another well 100 feet from one well. You don't do that. So that means they're spreading out the property. That this guy's becoming very powerful, and it scares people. It scares him so much that before you get to verse or chapter 27, in verse 34 and 35, it reads, "When Esau was 40 years old, he married Judith, daughter of Beeri the Hittite, and also Basemath, daughter of Elon the Hittite. They were a source of grief to Isaac and Rebekah." Now, once again, as we mentioned before in the last reading in 46, part 46, why would something not just suddenly appear in it? Because you pay attention to this. As we go through the entire word, all the way to Revelation, when something appears that doesn't seem right, pay attention to it. It's like getting your attention. It's like underlining it. Just remember when the Hebrew and Aramaic was written, there were no capital letters, there were no commas, there were no periods, there were no beginnings of sentences. It was just run on, and it wasn't underlined or highlighted or in bold. So there's a reason that this wording was put together the way it's showing here. It's to get your attention. So we go into chapter 27. When Isaac is old, so it didn't take long, a couple pages into the word here, and Isaac's born. Isaac's getting old. Happens quick. Amazing how his word continues through the Bible, but he's only 2 or 3 pages long. But we remember Abraham, Isaac, Yaakov. We remember those. The line, I am from the tribe of Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov. So are all 12 tribes, by the way, not just Judah. Okay? Oh. When Isaac was old and his eyes were so weak that he could no longer see, I know what that means, he called Esau his older son, and he said to him, "My son." "Here I am," he answered. "Here I am." Now Isaac and even Esau has some good traits that he picked up from his grandfather Abraham. Here I am. There's one of them right there. So Esau wasn't exactly evil. He just did some things he should never, ever, ever do. He made a choice. He wasn't born to be evil his whole life. He was born to make a choice, and he's making choices. Isaac made some bad choices, more good than bad. When things go wrong, he went to the father. When Esau goes wrong, he goes up to neighbors. He marries off strange people. He marries off strange tribes. He marries into blood that he shouldn't be mixing in, the stuff he was told not to do. Because why? Because of their faith in the religion, the false idols, the blood worshiping, so forth. In verse 11, it says, Jacob said to Rebekah, his mother, "But my brother Esau is a hairy man." So Rebekah's into some things she shouldn't be getting into. She's changing things around. She wants Isaac to get the blessing. Isaac was not firstborn. So what happens? She makes it through trickery and deceit that Isaac blesses not Esau. He blesses Yaakov. And there's trouble coming from that. There's trouble in life, what we live in now. There's just one thing after another. It's hard to keep up with everything. It's even increasing, but you've got the whole thing is you keep your faith. Walk the walk you're supposed to have. And when it comes down to it, there's some more lying going on. Verse 24, are you really my son Esau? He asked. I am, he replied. So who's saying that? Yaakov is, Jacob. Telling little lies is not okay. But he does. As a result, what happens? Verse 40, you will live by the sword and you will serve your brother. Who's that? That's Esau. So Esau is going to get a blessing, but his family lineage is going to be warlike. Now take a look in the Middle East. Take a look east of the Jordan River, and have you ever had total peace and calm ever? The only thing that's lasted for thousands of years that we can still talk about that's still there is what's left of it. 5 years ago, it was big, and that's Damascus. Damascus is just a screwed up area now. It's so badly torn up through wars of the recent 5 years. So what we comment in verse 40 is this in chapter 27. The so-called lost tribes. I heard that growing up, the lost tribes of Israel. They're not lost. They just ignore the Father. But they know who they are. Seem to use instead of scattered tribes are obvious in our current world where the Western people of power and control rule, manage, and manipulate all those tribes who stayed in the desert for thousands of years, living a Bedouin life. That's the other 12 tribes of Ishmael. And yet, all that oil that lies beneath them became a blessing and a curse for them, for both of them. For the tribes of Isaac still have control today. Israel is a very, very powerful nation, and it's not just people of Judah that live there. The great majority of the scattered tribes are all over the world, but it all points back that way. People are wanting to destroy New York right now, that age we live in. If you think about it, the great majority of the money, the finance that keeps Israel alive, Israel, the state of Israel, is and comes from New York. Think about it. If you want to take down Israel without firing a shot, take out the banks, take out those who support them. Everybody who works in trade in the world today, money goes through New York. See where we're going through with a worldwide manipulation of funds and management and tools to support the state of Israel, that you can destroy that area without attacking it, because people have tried for thousands of years to take it down and destroy it, and they can't. They can't. It ain't happening. So now Hasatan's got his little minions, and they're at it again. It is year 2020. This Bible's been in the works, and now it's going into YouTube since 1994. If I had completed this in 1994, I wouldn't be saying half of what I'm saying in a number of comments right now. The Bible wording is the same, but it's the comments that changed. They're about as up to date as you can get. So we waited until this time. We waited until we felt the Father spoke to us and says, now. I said, is this going to go out to the masses all over the world? And I didn't get an answer from him, but basically all I get when I read the word and the response is remnant, 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 remnant. And that's you. You're a shepherd. You're not a sheep. See you at the next reading. Amen.